by the end of the first season, I had so much fan mail that I didn't know I had, that was in the mail room, that they offered me a contract. I also was offered a role, a play to do that was Broadway bound. And I was going to leave the show and take that. And it was a good role. Forget what the heck it was now. And so I went in and told Gene that I was going to, when the season was up, I was going to leave. And Gene says, you can't do that. Yes, I can. And he said, don't you understand what I'm trying to achieve here? I said, Gene, you've been wonderful, and I really thank you for this opportunity. But you know, my life is theater, musical theater, and I'm getting offers for all kinds of wonderful things where I want to be. And he was sitting behind his desk, and he looked up at me, and he said, and I handed him my resignation that I'd written out. And he took it, I finally laid it on the desk, and he looked at it, and he said, take the weekend, Nichelle, because that's how I know it was either Thursday or Friday. And he said, and think about it. And if you feel the same way the beginning of next week, if you still feel that way, think about this. It's more than you think it is. Just think about it. And if you still want to go on by Monday morning, I'll give you my bless. You go with my blessings. And he took the resignation and stuck it in his desk drawer. And I said, thanks, Gene, and I skipped out of there. Whew, that went better than I thought. And as fate would have it, I've always used this way because I believe in fate. I believe it was fated. I was to be a celebrity guest at some fundraising thing in Beverly Hills. I believe it was an NAACP fundraiser, but it might not have been, but I think it was. And so I went to do this on that Saturday night, and I had just been taken to the dais and sat down when the organizer came over and said, Miss Nichols, how are you, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, listen, there's someone here who said he is your biggest fan, and he's looking chirpy, you know, and he said, and he's desperate to meet you. He really wants to meet you. And I said, oh, thank you. Now I know, you know, lots of fan mail, and I've seen it, the shows, and they're being on for, you know, and the ones that I got to see, because usually I didn't get home until after the show was over. I didn't see the most of Star Trek that I was in until the reruns. And I was on hiatus at best. So I said, certainly. And I stand up and turn, and I'm thinking, it's a Star Trek fan. He said, it's a Star Trek fan. I'm looking for a young man who's a Star Trek fan. I turn, and instead of fan, there's this face the world knows with this beautiful smile on it. And I remember thinking, whoever that fan is going to have to wait, because Dr. Martin Luther King, my leader, is walking toward me, not 10 feet away, with a beautiful smile on his face. And then this man says, yes, Miss Nichols, I am that fan. I am your best fan, your greatest fan. And my family are your greatest fans. As a matter of fact, this is the only show on television that my wife, Coretta, and I will allow our little children to watch, to stay up and watch, because it's on past their bedtime. And I said, which was all that I was able to say, my mouth just opened and closed. He said, "We admire you greatly, you know." And he said some more things, and the manner in which you've created this role has dignity and so forth. And he said, you know, and before he said, I said, Dr. King, thank you so much. And then I got the courage to say, and I really am going to miss my co-stars. And he said, what do you mean? Dead serious. What are you talking about? I said, well, I've had an off. He said, you cannot. And I said, well, I'm going to leave Star Trek because I'm going to say have an offer to star in I never got that far. I said, well, I'm leaving Star Trek. He said, you cannot. You cannot. And I felt like that little boy, Willis. What you talking about, Dr. King? But you know I didn't say that, no. But I was taken aback, and I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. He said, don't you understand what this man has achieved, is achieving or something? And I thought, deja vu all over again. I just looked at him. He said, for the first time on television, we will be seen as we should be seen every day, as intelligent, quality, beautiful people who can sing, dance, but who can go into space, who can be lawyers, who can be teachers, who can be professors, who are in this day, and yet you don't see it on television until now. And he went on, so many of the things, perhaps some of the things he said, but I could say nothing. I just stood there, realizing every word that he was saying was the truth. And he said, if you leave, Nichelle, Gene Roddenberry has opened a door for the world to see us. If you leave, that door can be closed, because you see, your role is not a black role, and it's not a female role. He can fill it with anything, including an alien. And at that moment, the world tilted for me. And I knew then, I didn't want to know it, because I was going to go through some more turmoil for the rest of the week. But I knew that I was something else, that the world was not the same. And that's all I could think of was Dr. King, everything that he had said. The world sees us for the first time as we should be seen. And I remember being angry come Sunday or whatever. Why me? Why should I have to whatever happened come Monday morning, I went to Gene, and I'm not sure to this day if I knew what I was going to say. He's sitting behind that same dang desk. And he had, whoever he was talking to had to leave because I went there first. And I said, Gene, and I told him what happened. And I said, if you still want me to stay, I'll stay. I have to. And he opened his drawer, and he looked up at me and said, God bless Dr. Martin Luther King. Somebody knows where I'm coming from. And I said, that's what he said in my brain. And he took out my resignation, which was torn into 100 pieces, and handed me the pile. And we just stood there looking at each other. And I finally said, thank you, Gene. And he said, thank you, Nichelle. And my life's never been the same since. And I've never looked back. I've never regretted it. Because I understood the universe had somehow, that universal mind had somehow put me there. And we have choices. Are we going to walk down this road, or are we going to walk down the other? And it was the right road for me.